Hello, Edisto. Earlier today, I was able to speak with Mr. Bill Young. Mr. Bill Young is running to be our representative for South Carolina's 1st Congressional District, and he'll be running against incumbent Nancy Mace. Bill is a huge advocate for our shrimpers here in South Carolina, and he has 2 shrimpers town halls that are coming up soon. He's got one April 10th at Momo Waterfront, and that's located at 1049 Everglades Avenue in North Charleston. There will be complimentary beer and wine. The doors open at 6 o'clock and the program starts at 6:30. And he has another town hall coming up on April 11th at Shell Ring, and that's located at 1111 11th Street, Port Royal, South Carolina. Doors open at 6 o'clock and the program begins at 6:30. For more information, you can contact Bill directly at info@billyoungforcongress.org or visit his website at www.billyoungforcongress.org. Hello, Edisto. I'm David Crawford, and I'm with Bill Young, and he's running for South Carolina's 1st Congressional District, and he's here to tell you about how he's going to maintain that office if he achieves it and what he's going to do for South Carolina.
Yeah, hello, Edisto, and David, thanks for having me. So, in running for the 1st Congressional District here in South Carolina, a lot of things that are important to me is, border security, want to be strong on the border. On top of that, we really want to help our veterans, support our veterans when it comes to veteran health care, veteran mental health care, increasing staffing nationally to mental health, as well as locally, increasing the accessibility to VA choice. And when it comes to our shrimpers and local economy, we really want to advocate for small businesses and our shrimpers. There's bills in Congress right now that could help them at the federal level in a conservative manner.
Well, what kind of bills are we talking about there?
Yeah, so one of those is called the LESS Act, and that's the Laws Enforcing Safe Shrimp Act. And really what it would do is it would just enforce the laws that are currently in place. Because right now we're supposed to be inspecting the shrimp that come from other nations. And right now we import 90% of our shrimp from Vietnam, India, and China. And those shrimp, they're injected with antibiotics and chemicals that really decrease our immune system. And when they get here, everybody thinks they're local. And nobody really knows.
So a lot of our local shrimp are really not local, are they?
No, they're not. We actually import 90% of our shrimp from Vietnam, Asia, and India. And those shrimps are filled with antibiotics and chemicals that really don't do good for our health. And they shouldn't be accepted in our food supply and in our markets.
It's a crying shame. I was talking to George Fontaine, who is a.k.a. Bucci, and he's been a shrimper on Edisto along with his brother Bobby. Fontaine Seafood is still existing on Edisto, along with Flowers. I got to give them a shout out too, because our shrimpers are very important to us in the industry to keep it going. But we used to have 30 boats in our fleet. We're down to, I think, 2 small shrimp boats now. And what is the reason for that? They just can't afford to keep up with this pace? The cost of labor is so low, or what? Or all of the above?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of reasons. The cost of doing work is high. The cost of diesel is high. And also, we're importing 90% of our shrimp. And what that does is it brings our price down. Just in the last 12 months, it's brought the price down by 40%. And not only that, our cold storage facilities are filled with imported shrimp.
Wow, that means we have no room for ours.
Right.
Because I hear that they're only getting a few dollars per pound for their shrimp now.
Yeah, it's definitely brought the price down. When you have predatory pricing from Vietnam and India where they're housing people, just on NBC News, there was a whistleblower report that came out in the last few days that India is pretty much partaking in slave labor to bring this shrimp down at incredibly cheap prices so they can sell them to large corporations like Walmart and Aldi's. And it's really hurting our shrimping industry and creating that price to have to come down at an artificial rate. And it's what we call predatory pricing.
I hear you do a lot for the veterans here and that you want to do more for our veterans. How would you approach that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the VA Office of Inspector General states that 80% of our facilities nationwide are understaffed when it comes to nursing and mental health. And so what we really want to do is we want to look at how can we increase that staffing? How can we increase the retaining rate when we get nurses? And let's offer them competitive salaries as well. One of the big deals is in Charleston, they're trying to offer them 15% less than what they're getting paid in Columbia. Like, I don't understand why someone's going to come work if they're getting paid less in an area where the cost of living is even less.
Now, how are you different in your parallels than Nancy Mace?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's obviously going to be some comparisons. When we talk about the border, we're all going to be strong on the border. When we talk about our veterans, I'm going to be strong with our veterans. I'm going to actually support our veterans. And when it comes to supporting them, what I mean by that is I don't just mean by going to Congress and saying we're going to do things in the VA and then let it go. You've got to actually inspect what you expect. You got to make sure and enforce that these bills are actually getting enacted and that the VA isn't walking all over you. We're also talking about our shrimpers like we just discussed. Nancy Mace wants to push the Seafood Act, which is a fish farming bill. And what that does is it advocates for fish farming, and it wants to study what an acceptable amount of antibiotics is in your coastal waters and your seafood. And she's the only Republican on that bill, and she's the lead sponsor on it. It just goes to show how out of touch she is with our seafood industry on the East Coast. And she's not even on the seafood caucus that's in Congress right now.
So if I understand this right, and Nancy has the right to come on this show too as well and rebut, but if I'm understanding this right, she's for farm-raised imported shrimp?
If you take a look at her actions in Congress, I would absolutely say that. Now, I haven't heard her go out in public and say that because I don't think she wants that to be called out because she knows that it goes against her district and her local wild-caught shrimpers.
I hear golfing got you through some very stressful times in your life, and I think there's a lot of South Carolina golfers around. Could you tell us a bit about your walk with golf here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when after I graduated from NC State and got my degree in economics, became a financial advisor for a while and was pretty good at it and was put in some senior roles. And unfortunately, I'd had 7 of my colleagues at the time that had taken their life from the Marine Corps. And unfortunately, that's grown to 12. And that really started to take a toll on me. And that's a heavy load to bear. And so I decided after talking with the VA to just find a distraction. And I found golf as a distraction. And then I found that there was a program called PGA Hope, where they do golf as a form of outdoor recreational therapy. And then as I saw that it was therapy for me and therapy for a ton of other veterans, I continued to pretty much do a deep dive into it and found that Charleston was a very supportive community for that outdoor recreational therapy. Got involved with PGA Hope, came down here, and then currently I'm the state director for the Veteran Golf Association, which is a national organization. And what we do is we enrich veterans' lives through the sportsmanship and camaraderie of golf. It's amazing. We get veterans that come out from all over the state, all over the country. We've got over 20,000 members. We do over 950 events nationally. And here in the state of South Carolina, we do over 43 this year.
So you're for the veterans, you're for the shrimpers, you're for South Carolina, you're for the coast. You sound like a very deeply rooted coastal area kind of guy. Do you do stuff for, say, other agricultural industries in here? What do you plan to do for the farmers, for instance?
Nancy Mace took a stance and wrote a letter. She was against the increase of the reference price for our farming industry.
Now, can you explain that?
There's subsidies that go towards our farmers to make sure that our food security is there and that we make sure that we are producing food for our country and that we don't have to completely rely on imported food. And when it comes to our chicken, beef, and other food products, that a lot of these plants are shutting down. And so, being an economics major, it's simple supply and demand. If our supply decreases and our demand stays, the price is going to go up. And so what we really have to look at is kind of how Trump did. He was very big on subsidizing our farming industry. I'm a conservative, but food security is very important to our country, and we have to make sure that our farmers and our food supply is taken care of.
And is there anything else you would like to add to this podcast?
Yeah, one thing we really like to talk about is, our education system. The education in the Low Country, we really want to continue to work towards promoting STEM resources. We want to keep gender ideology out of our school system, this anti-American indoctrination. We want to keep that out. And like I said, we want to promote STEM resources, and we want to talk about public-private partnerships to help our local districts and our local schools to make sure that all kids in the district have access to great education.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, and it's long overdue. Well, it's been great to be with you, Mr. Bill Young, and good luck for your job going for Nancy Mace's position. And you can come back anytime you like, and Nancy, you can come here too if you like, and we appreciate you being here. Hello, Edisto.
Hello, Edisto.